Next, France's Conservative Interior Minister is promising tougher rules to, in his words, protect the French after a Moroccan man suspected of raping and murdering a 19-year-old woman, then dumping her body in a Paris park, was tracked down and arrested in Switzerland. Prosecutors say the suspect has previous convictions for a rape and also an expulsion order. Here at France 24, Emerald Maxwell with this.
On top of the sadness at Paris Dauphine University, there's anger.
We have a justice system that doesn't work. The suspect had an expulsion order. He was supposed to leave France, but instead he was casually wandering around Paris.
It's not normal that a man who should have been under house arrest was allowed out. The law wasn't respected.
The rape and killing of 19-year-old student Philippine and the fact that the suspect, Taha O, was supposed to be deported and wasn't, has inflamed political tensions in France, where the new right-wing government plans to crack down on immigration. France's new interior minister, who has vowed to boost law and order, said the country's legal arsenal needed to develop to protect the French. So what went wrong in this case? Convicted for a rape committed in 2019 when he was a minor, Taha O was sentenced to 7 years in prison and expulsion at the end of it. But he was released in June, then placed in administrative detention, while the French authorities issued a request for a consular pass to Morocco. It finally came through in early September, by which time a judge had freed Taha O on condition he reported regularly to the authorities.
It's quite surprising because he hadn't been in the detention centre for the maximum of 90 days yet. So we should really ask what reason the judge gave in order to release him.
Just before the student's murder, the suspect had been placed on a wanted list because he'd flouted the conditions of his release. France routinely issues deportation orders, but only around 7% of them are enforced, compared to 30% across the European Union.
Tragic case. Emerald Maxwell there. Andrew Hilliar joins us for more on the situation. What's the latest, Andrew?
Yeah, Mark, this is a case that has sent huge shockwaves throughout France. Comes at a crucial time, just after the formation of that new government. Even earlier today, we heard from a French magistrates union publishing an open letter in which they deplored the fact that this debate had taken such a, they said, xenophobic turn. They singled out Bruno Retailleau, France's new conservative interior minister, for the way he criticised the French justice system. And the other thing this case has done, Mark, is really kind of put the spotlight on the ongoing tug-of-war we've seen this week between, on the one hand, Retailleau in the Interior Ministry from the right, and Didier Migaud, who's the new justice minister, the only figure in Michel Barnier's cabinet who is from the left. So Didier Migaud, earlier this week, defending the judiciary, responding to Retailleau, saying that the French judiciary is independent. Then Retailleau hit back at Didier Migaud. He said that, OK, the French judiciary is independent, but French Parliament, which embodies the will of the French people, is sovereign. So we've seen this, this back and forth between the two men. It all kind of came to a head today when both men were received by Michel Barnier at Matignon. That's the French Prime Minister's official residence. Matignon insists that neither of the ministers was reprimanded. However, it's not a good look for Michel Barnier in this first week of his new government.
Indeed, one can't begin to imagine what the family of the victim are feeling with all this swirling round. Break down for us, Andrew, the figures on expulsion orders.
OK, Mark, so this expulsion order, it's known by its French acronym as an OQTF. Now, in English, that's the obligation to leave French territory. So I'm going to break down the figures for you. Now, the suspect was subject to one of these orders. And in the first 3 months of this year, France ordered the expulsion of more than 34,000 non-EU nationals. That's nearly a third of the total across the entire EU. Compare that to the next two countries on the list, Germany and Belgium. So a huge figure there. And the reason I'm showing you these figures, Mark, is that, France has come under criticism for carrying out for following through with less than 10% of these orders. But let me show you the next set of figures, because if you actually put those figures into context, you can see that even though France carries out a small proportion of actual expulsion orders, it still carries out more expulsions than any other EU state, more than Germany, more than Sweden. So the next question you may ask, Mark, is why is it so hard for France to carry out these deportations? Well, there are many reasons. Sometimes it's down to bureaucracy. Other times it's often down to diplomatic rows. Sometimes there's a reluctance from some countries to accept the return of people who have criminal convictions. In this particular case, it appears that French authorities contacted their Moroccan counterparts. They didn't get a response, so it would appear that French authorities never received a consular pass from Morocco, which is what is needed for the removal of a person without a passport.
Now, you hinted at the political reaction a little earlier. The far right in France, one might imagine, making political headway out of this one.
Yeah, I mean, as you may expect, indeed, the far right has jumped on this case. The leader of the National Rally, Jordan Bardella, saying Tuesday that the government was far too lax. And the big issue here is that the National Rally has a lot of leverage over the government, because if there were to be a no-confidence vote tabled by the left, for example, the National Rally could have the votes to bring down the government. So, the far right has already alluded to another case, a case that happened 2 years ago, the killing of 12-year-old Lola here in Paris. The suspected killer in that case was an Algerian national who had stayed in France on an expired student visa. Now, back then, the far right organised protests and tried to conflate the issue, making it about illegal immigration in general. So the concern this time round is that, the far right may weaponise this case to push an anti-migrant agenda, capitalising on the leverage that it has over the French government.
Andrew Hilliar, thank you very much indeed for giving us more of the context of this case, which is horrific. Just on the basic facts of what has happened, our hearts go out to the family of the victim, but it's causing great political upheaval here in France as well. We'll continue to follow